Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome back to another edition of Snack Time with a Dollop of Read Aloud. We're going to continue with today's reading, Medusa Jones by Ross Collins. With permission granted to share this book with you, gifted by Scholastic Publishing. So, when we last were talking, we discovered that Medusa was not the happiest of little Gorgons. She was going to school, and while she was going to school, she was being teased and taunted by the champions, who were supposed to be the good guys, the heroes of Greek mythology. So, Mrs. Willis left a question for you, and that question was to show or to share with me some character traits or ways that you would describe Medusa's person. So, the question that you really should ask yourself when you're talking about character traits is to put it in a sentence. So I want to use the sentence, Medusa is a blank person, period. I know this because, and then there would be your evidence. So I'm thinking, based on what I've read so far, and based on some of your comments that you shared in the posts below, we could say that Medusa is a lonely person. Okay? And I can tell that Medusa is a lonely person. So, Medusa is a lonely person. I know this because, now think of the evidence that you know based on what we've read so far. Well, one, she really only has one friend that we've met so far. That's her dog. Two, she would rather be anywhere else but school because of the way that the kids are treating her. So there's some evidence. Let's think of another way that we can describe her. So I could say Medusa is lonely. That's one way. I could also say Medusa is a frustrated. I could say she is a frustrated person. Now, I said she's frustrated. So how do I know that she's frustrated? Well, I know that she's frustrated because she wanted to turn the champions into stone, remember? So Medusa Jones is a frustrated person. I know this because she was tired of the way that she was being treated, so much so that she begged her mom and dad to allow her to turn them to stone. Okay, so she's frustrated. You can say that she's an angry person. We're going to continue looking at character traits and looking for character traits with evidence. And we're going to continue that with our next chapter, chapter 3. Okay, now this chapter is a little funny. So this takes place at the end of the school day. And we see what kind of not so much trouble, but what Medusa gets into once she leaves school grounds. Okay, here we go. And then here is school. So before we start reading, I'll show you the picture. This is Acropolis Academy. And the Acropolis is a famous ruin in Greek mythology, in case you didn't know. And I really hope you watched that Brain Pop video that I posted. It's just kind of like a brief overview of Greek mythology. But anyways, all the kids are leaving. And according to Medusa, all the kids are talking about her mishap with the hat the other day, or at the beginning of the day. Chapter 3. Once, and only once each year, there is a day known as the longest day of the year. On this day, the sun rises earlier and sets earlier than usual, or sets, later than usual. That's also what we call the first day of summer. It's the summer equinox. Today was not that day, but to Medusa Jones, it felt as though it was that day. The school seemed to have nothing better to talk about all day than Medusa's hat humiliation. Wherever Medusa went, she heard snickering and whispers behind her. The whispers stopped as soon as she turned around. Everyone knew about the supposed power of Medusa's gaze, but none were as sure as the champions that she wouldn't use it at will. So only the champions knew that she couldn't turn people to stone. Everyone else in the school wasn't exactly sure, so they didn't want to chance it and have Medusa be upset with them. The giggling got particularly depressing when she was asked to deliver a note to his staff room and heard the distinct sound of a guffaw from Mr. Achilles, the PE teacher, as she left. A guffaw is like a loud laugh, like, "Pah!" That's a guffaw. It seemed as though the bell would never ring, but eventually it did. After most of the other children ran, laughing and shouting to their freedom, Medusa packed her satchel, which is a backpack, and walked along Main Street for a diversion, which is a distraction, where she could look into shop windows and admire the yummy pastries. Medusa and her mother would often go pastry admiring when in low spirits. Medusa wandered down the street, ignoring the familiar stares of the townspeople. She paused occasionally to look in the windows, but it seemed that most of the shops had already sold most of their pastries for the day. There wasn't much to see apart from the odd currant bun, which is like a raisin, which had been squeezed by everyone before they settled on something tastier instead. After a while, Medusa saw a shop that she didn't recognize. It was a shop with newly painted walls. So here is Main Street that Medusa's walking along, and this is the store that she stops and notices. This is the store with the freshly painted front. It says Salon de Josef. Gleaming, polished fittings and a large sign hanging outside the picture of a glamorous lady smiling, though she had as if she had just won the lottery. Medusa walked closer and read the words below the blissful woman. "Fed up with you," read the sign. "A new you is just a snip away." Medusa looked at the sign above the door. The large, impressive gold letters said Salon de Josef, hairdresser to the gentry. That means to the people. Medusa wasn't sure what gentry meant, but she liked the sound of it, so she decided to go in. The air inside Salon de Josef was thick with perfume and wax. On the wall there were pictures like the one outside of insanely smiling ladies with outrageous hairstyles. One had a bird's nest on top of her head, her hair braided to look like a pelican, which is a really big bird with like a big mouth. Another had her hair styled to resemble a pouncing tiger. But she looked extremely pleased with her hair. So who was Medusa to say anything else? On one side of the room, there was a row of plush chairs, one of which was occupied by a fat lady with a dog the size of a rat on her lap. The dog yapped at Medusa when it caught sight of her. The fat lady turned to see what the rat was yapping at, and immediately she stood up and tottered out. Medusa went over and sat where the woman had been, and the seat was nice and warm. On the other side of the room was a row of elevated seats with gold-flamed mirrors in front of each one. One of them was occupied by a lady who was having her hair transformed into what looked oddly like a monkey riding a bicycle. The man who was doing this transforming work had his back to Medusa. His arms moved feverishly around the sculpture. A tweak here, a snip there, and finally he stopped dead and threw his scissors onto the floor and said, "Voila!" He pushed a lever that caused the seat to shoot upward, and the woman gazed at her new hair for the first time, admiring the monkey with the bicycle. And the monkey somehow seemed to be laughing, and the wheels looked like they were turning. "Monsieur Josef," squealed the woman, "I am reborn. You are a genius." "I know," said Monsieur Josef. With a flick of his foot, the chair plummeted back to the floor, and the woman wobbled out of the salon, grinning from ear to ear. "A moment, Madame Pomfrey," said Monsieur Josef, with his back to Medusa as he arranged the lotions, combs, and scissors on the shelf below the mirror. He carefully removed all of the hair from the chair with a brush the size of a toothpick, and finally slapped his hands together and turned around. Medusa smiled her nicest possible smile at Monsieur Josef. He was a small pear-shaped man with long, elegant fingers and a mustache, which had been styled to curve around his cheek and tuck behind his ear. Monsieur Josef looked at Medusa. "Hello," said Medusa. "Who are you?" said Monsieur Josef. "And what have you done with Madame Pomfrey?" Medusa had never heard such an accent like that in Greece. "She left," said Medusa. "I'm Medusa, Medusa Jones." She smiled again. Monsieur Josef smiled and then sniffed. Then he caught sight of Medusa's hair, and his expression altered to one of interest. "Have you been here before?" he asked, and pointed to Medusa's head snakes. "Is this one of mine?" "No," said Medusa. I've never been here before, and these are mine." "C'est magnifique," said Monsieur, which means magnificent. "I have never seen the like. So real and so snaky." "What? Thank you," said Medusa. "And what do you want me to do?" asked Monsieur Josef, staring at those snakes. "I need what that sign says outside. I need a new me, please," asked Medusa. "But this is an original, no? Why would you want to change these?" said Medusa. And this is where I think that frustrated comes back in, because I think she's still frustrated. "I'm sick of being original," snapped Medusa. "I just want to be normal." "Like what?" Monsieur Josef asked. "I don't know. Just give me the works, please," she pleaded. The works. The works you will have, mademoiselle." Monsieur Josef smiled and patted his styling chair. Up here, and Monsieur Josef will create." Medusa hopped onto the seat like she was told, and a clean white sheet immediately swooped around her, billowing around her shoulders, and was gently tucked at the back of her neck. Here is Monsieur Josef, and there's Medusa, and the head snakes look really pretty curious. I wonder how this is going to go, because her hair is not like yours or my hair. Her hair is actual animals. Make a prediction. How do you think this is going to go? Is this going to turn out well? Tell me why. Is this not going to turn out well? Tell me why. Ready? Okay. Monsieur Josef picked up a selection of tiny bottles and began spraying delicate mists across the head snakes. The first was warm water. The second was a light perfume with the scent of lavender. The third was something that smelled like honey and gave Medusa a tingling sensation on her forehead. The snakes slowly coiled and basked in the warm aromas. They weren't used to such attention. All Medusa normally did was dunk her head in icy cold water once a week, which they did not like. "So laugh, gasped Monsieur Josef. "It is a shame, and yet you have the monkey on the bicycle, and you will never go back." So he's telling her he doesn't really want to change her hair, but once she gets the monkey on a bicycle design, she'll love it. I'm not so sure. He began to massage the head snakes with his long, nimble fingers, and they lightly hissed with pleasure. He stretched them out to their full length, kneading each little bone, and let them flop back. The head snakes could not believe their luck. "And now, mon petit mademoiselle Medusa," said Monsieur Josef with a flourish, "prepare to be transformed." Medusa tightened her grip on the armrest with anticipation. This was the beginning of the rest of her life, the rest of her normal life. Monsieur Josef held aloft large silver scissors. Dun, dun, dun. Here we go, guys. The light dancing on the blades, dazzling Medusa. With one deft flick of his wrist, Monsieur Josef took his first snip. Instantaneously, every single head snake popped up, basking, and turned to face their attacker. His long-fingered hands hovering above the head snakes. "So la flac," he squeaked, as every head snake rose up and then plunged. Jaws gaping, teeth biting, fingers getting munched. "Ah!" screamed Monsieur Josef, tumbling backwards, bottles and scissors crashing on the floor. "Ah!" screamed Medusa, suddenly woken from her bright new future. "My beautiful hands," said Monsieur Josef. "My beautiful tools." He held his hands aloft, but the venom was working quickly. Monsieur Josef didn't have hands anymore. What he had were huge, pulsating red balloons. On the ends of delicate wrists, they looked like angry udders from cows. The head snakes hissed and snapped, trying to bite their attacker, who dared come at them with scissors. But Medusa just jumped off her seat and was backing out the door. Poor Monsieur Josef. Look, love that. Ah! "What have you done?" screamed Monsieur Josef, his French accent suddenly gone. "You have angry hair that attacks. What kind of person are you?" I'm just a person who wants to be normal," said Medusa, backing away from the angry udders. "I'm really sorry about your hands." "Sorry? You're sorry?" screamed Monsieur Josef. "Get out! Get out! You've ruined me! Get out, I say, and don't come back!" He waved one angry udder angrily at the door, shooing her out quickly. "The swelling will go down in a month, I promise," Medusa screamed as she ran through the door. But Monsieur Josef didn't look like he cared a bit. She grabbed her satchel and ran as fast as she could all the way home. Look, there are his hands. They do look like udders. And poor Medusa. She is still the same. And her hair adventure was not successful. I feel bad for her. So, that was kind of funny. What I want you to do is, today, when you're done, I want you to really think about, after today's reading, I really want you to think about how to characterize her. And think to yourself, what kind of person is Medusa? Medusa is a blank person. And I think this way because we're focusing on character traits, boys and girls, because one of the best ways to get to know your character better, to better understand the story, is by looking at what your characters are experiencing and how those experiences make your character into that well-rounded person that we get to know. So, we're going to continue to add to our character trait chart that Mrs. Willis shared with you the other day. And I really want you to answer this question. Medusa is a blank person. I think this way because, and add that in the comments section down below. All right, this was a little bit longer. This was a pretty long chapter. So this is going to be one of our longest videos to date. But I still want you to know that we have our class share at 11 o'clock today. And I'm looking so forward to it. And I want you to know that I miss you. And I hope you stay safe. And that I love you. And that I'll see you tomorrow. All right, guys? Think about the kind of person she is. And please respond and let me know. I'll see you tomorrow. Actually, nope. I'll see you at 11. Class share. Bye, guys.